Hello, everyone. This is Talk with a Therapist. Welcome to today's session. We are going to continue exploring emotions and feelings. So far in this space, I have addressed the grief process, pandemic fatigue, and fears. And today, I would like to talk about resilience and resilience theory. You might have heard about resilience. So what exactly is it? Well, resilience is typically defined as the capacity to recover from difficult life events. It's your ability to withstand adversity and bounce back and grow despite life's downturns. Now, this stems from what we call resilience theory, and itself stems from the fact that we all face all kinds of adversity in life. There are personal crises, there are illnesses, loss of a loved one, there is bullying, job loss, and financial instability. And of course, in this moment, there is also the shared reality of tragic events in the news, such as terrorist attacks and natural disasters, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. So people, we all have to learn to cope with and work through very challenging life experiences. And resilience theory refers to the ideas surrounding how people are affected by and how they adapt to things like adversity, change, loss, and risk. Now, resilience is not a trampoline when you're down one moment and up the next. It's more like slowly climbing a mountain without a map. It takes time, it takes strength and help from people around you, and you'll likely experience setbacks along the way. Now, being resilient does not mean that people don't experience stress or emotional upheaval and suffering. Quite the contrary. Demonstrating resilience includes working through emotional pain and suffering. So resilience is not a fixed trait. It's flexibility, adaptability, and perseverance can help people tap into the resilience by changing certain thoughts and behaviors. So overall, resilience is important because it gives us the power to overcome setbacks so that we can live a more fulfilling life. And there are traits that can be nurtured in order to acquire and experience resilience. I would like to start by number one, which is to learn how to view difficulties as challenges. So instead of seeing a difficulty as a paralyzing event, we can look at our failures and mistakes as lessons to be learned from and as opportunities for growth and not as a negative reflection on our abilities or self-worth. Another way in which we can nurture resilience is by staying committed. So we can stay committed not just to work or relationships or loved ones, but to our lives and to our goals. And that will give us reasons to get out of bed in the morning, which we can also pair with the third trait that we can nurture, which is personal control. So it's important to shift our focus, to shift our energy to things and situations and events that we have control over. Because we can put our efforts where they can have the most impact, so we can feel empowered and confident. It's okay to spend some time worrying about uncontrollable events. Sometimes it's beyond our control to do that, but it's good to become self-aware and to shift the focus so we don't feel lost or helpless with things that we cannot do anything about. Another thing that I find is very important is to revise our inner narration. How and the way and the things that we say to ourselves, the way we narrate our life and the way we explain things to ourselves. So we can learn to see the impact, the extension of impact, and the perspective in the things that we go through. So for example, we can learn to view the effects of bad events as temporary rather than permanent. So for example, we can say, my boss didn't like the work I did on that project, rather than my boss never likes my work. So the impact will be limited to this particular specific point and not to everything that one does, right? In the same manner, the extension of impact could be, for example, I'm not very good at this, whatever it is that I feel I'm not very good at, instead of jumping to, I'm not good at anything. Right? And for perspective, we can learn to not blame only ourselves, but consider people, circumstances, and context as also factors in the way that sometimes we have to face adversity. So we might say, I didn't get the support I needed to finish that project successfully, instead of I messed that project up because I can't do my job. So impact, extension of impact, and perspective in the revision of our inner narration. So the way to develop resilience is both complex and personal, and it involves a combination of inner strengths and outer resources. And there isn't a universal formula for becoming more resilient. All people are different. And resilience builds as people encounter all kinds of stressors on a daily basis. And there are protective factors which can be nurtured to help build resilience. So let's look at some of these factors. So first, it's helpful to think of resilience as a project. And there are steps that you can take towards the accomplishment of that project, right? Remember the metaphor of it not being a trampoline up and down, but it being a slow, trail that you go up, right? And that you cultivate and do slowly. And one of the most important things for these kinds of processes is self-awareness. So it's very important to understand how you typically respond to stress and adversity. And that way you can begin to have more tools at your disposal. And by knowing your strengths and weaknesses, especially your strengths, we feel more capable and confident when we can identify and draw on our talents and strengths, which can help us build self-regulation skills to really help us regulate emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. For this, we can do, of course, guided imagery, we can do breathing exercises. Mindfulness is one of the most common techniques for self-regulation skills. And these, in turn, teach us coping skills. And we can do other exercises for coping, such as reframing thoughts, remember the inner narration, exercising, spending time outdoors, and improving sleep, tapping into creative outlets, right? Remember the importance of learning from your mistakes and failures so that you can incorporate the idea of post-traumatic growth. So people in post-traumatic growth often find that after a crisis, for example, the loss of a job or the breakdown of a relationship, they learn to reevaluate their lives and make positive changes. Now, this idea, in turn, increases optimism, which is also very important to dealing with adversity, because you can focus on what you can do when you are faced with a challenge, and you can identify problem-solving steps that you can take. And so people who are optimistic, we tend to feel more in control of outcomes. And the last very important thing that we will talk about next week is strengthening connections. We cannot underestimate at all the importance of having strong connections, having a support system that guides us and accompanies us and supports us throughout adversity. In fact, this is such an important topic that I will devote the next session to it. You can join me in 2 weeks to talk about the importance of touch and human connectedness. And to sum up today, resilience is not a permanent state. So one person may feel equipped to manage one stressor and overwhelmed by another. So we are able to remember the factors that we can incorporate that build resilience, and we can try to apply them when dealing with adversity. Because how we view adversity and stress strongly affects how we succeed. So this is why having a resilient mindset is so important. Now, it's also important to know that we are all going to fail from time to time. It's an inevitable part of living, and we make mistakes, and sometimes we fall flat on our faces. Now, the only way to avoid this is to live a shuttered life, never trying anything new or taking any risks. But few of us want a life like that, right? So being resilient means that when we do fail, which we all do, we bounce back. We have the strength to learn the lessons we need to learn, and we can move on to better and bigger things. So thank you for joining me today. I will see you in 2 weeks to talk about connectedness and human touch and the importance of having a strong support system. Thanks again. I hope you have a good night where you are.